Insurrection Podcast with Micah Dewey. This is episode 6. In this episode, we've got some big stories to talk about. The Capitol insurrection, because it's been a few weeks since I've done an episode. We're also going to be talking about Good Dollar, which is a cryptocurrency based around universal basic income. We're also going to be talking about Formula E and the update to the upcoming season and what's going to happen. And because it is, as of right now, January 21st, 2021, we will be talking about the new president, Joe Biden, and his relations and relationship via policy with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. And what we can expect to see, what we've already seen, and what that actually means for the future of both of our countries. And I think that there is something that Canadians especially should probably look at when we're talking about Biden and Trudeau. So let's go to the top here. Let's talk about what happened on January 6th in Washington, D.C. So a lot of people have talked this to death, and I don't think I'm really going to take too long on this topic because I think a lot of good left voices have already made a pretty solid case as to why it happened, what happened, and just what we should expect in the future. And so let's start at the beginning here. So what exactly happened? Well, Trump held a rally after calling supporters to Washington, D.C. through Twitter. They showed up, attended the rally, and then marched to the Capitol. If it would have ended there, I think a lot of people would have still laughed at it, but I don't think it would have been taken as seriously. But what happened then was that the mob, the insurrectionists, the traitors, whatever we want to call them, the fascists, the Nazis, like there were fascists and there were definitely Nazis in this crowd of people. But for the most part, it was, in my opinion, very, very delusional people. And this goes kind of to the key. One of the big keys in progressivism and socialism, and to a lesser extent Marxism, is that when we're talking about people that are acting completely uncritically and they're acting without thinking, and their thoughts that they do think are just in a false reality. For many of these folks, what can we actually do about that? And so I think that the biggest lesson that I think people on the left need to learn from this entire thing is that there's a certain level of institutional violence that is accepted on the right. It's expected on the right and isn't seen as a big deal on the right. But it's completely different for people on the left. We can look at how police and the media, or the mainstream media at least, even some alt media that we see on YouTube and Twitter and podcasts, have also, at least certain people have criticized the Antifa movement, the Black Lives Matter movement, some of their goals, some of their tendencies, especially when it relates to destruction of property, and the moral obligation to prevent violence outweighs the violence that one may take in preventing that violence. So let's, at least to me. So let me try to explain that in a slightly more real world scenario. So I'm thinking about this as effectively self-defense. And I believe that, unfortunately, a lot of these rioters, a lot of these insurrectionists, were using the same moral pathing of thought that I am right now. And at least those who did think about it and did act on that urge or on that desire for self-defense or self-preservation. It is what happens when we get to such an extreme level of inequality, such an extreme level of unjustness in the system and lack of trust. So again, I'm not excusing what happened in Washington, but I think that from people who are on the left, especially those who would consider themselves more extreme left, like I do, I would consider myself an eco-socialist or an ANCOM, somewhere in there. I'm maybe an anarcho-mutualist, somewhere in there. And so when we have these extreme movements, extreme ends of movements, such as the QAnon Trumpers or people that represent Antifa or people that represent just institutional violence against the state, we shouldn't just immediately demonize it. We should take a few minutes and think about the issues that led up to that, and if those issues could potentially lead someone to feel that self-defense is the only answer. And we can see this in specifically marginalized communities, both here in Canada, in the US, and around the world. We see, for example, we see Indigenous folk up at Wet'suwet'en and the land back movement and others throughout Canada that have taken definitely less violent approaches. Nobody has died at any of these protests as far as I'm aware. But they also get that same level of, ew, they're doing violence to make a point. That's not how we should do politics. When in reality, political theory and political thought essentially narrows down to who is allowed to do violence against whom. And so I think that for the most part, we also just need to be a little bit more aware of maybe not mainstream talking points or even real talking points. I think that there are effective ways to communicate to these people, at least in certain situations. You can leave the social issues on the sideline 99.999% of times, right? Unless if you have some of those libertarian bros who are like, you know, kind of, you do whatever the fuck you want and I'll do whatever the fuck I want and we just won't talk about it. Like that those people do exist, and those people are probably in that group, but they're more ideologically determined, at least as far as in my experience. And so there can, in fact, be a road of group populism if we can get past some of the less important social issues. I'm not saying that they're not important, but I am going to say less important. And as an example of that, I would probably lean towards more of the liberal-leaning identity politics kind of appointments. I think that there are definitely good reasons to do that, but when we are in the process of trying to like rebuild from the end of the pandemic and the economies, and there's just a lot of things going on, right? And I think it's more important to have competent leaders in those positions than it is to have a random person because they fit a specific group identity that you need represented in said cabinet or said minister's office. And so let me go back to the communication thing. I think that communication should be done on a wide base, especially in the U.S., where you can look at issues such as healthcare, drug arrests, just all the random bullshit that most Americans have to go through. Increasing rent, lowering wages, less consistent work. All of these things are issues that most people tend to have and tend to at least somewhat agree on, that under most organizations of society and the economy, you're going to need jobs that pay you enough money to be able to afford rent. And while I am personally a huge proponent of public housing and free housing and all of those situations, we at least have to get to that first point. We have to get to the point where, yeah, everybody actually is deserving of housing. Everybody is deserving of medical care and dental care. Everybody is deserving of a livable income. And whether you're left or right, I feel like unless if you are in the moneyed privilege group, you know, you're probably going to agree with at least the basic thought behind those. You may not agree that everybody should get public health care, but I think most people would agree that everybody should have access to healthcare coverage. Like, if you don't, you're a fucking animal. And at that point, I think you go, okay, well, I can't win you over. If you don't believe that people should have healthcare, if you don't believe that people should be guaranteed housing, especially when there are more houses than there are homeless people, like, there's not really much I can say to you, right? So this is where I'm going to leave the conversation on the insurrection, the failed coup d'etat, the riots at the White House, or at the Capitol. And we're going to move on to a slightly more interesting concept. And today I'm going to talk about good dollar. And y'all might be thinking, what the hell is good dollar? And that's a very fair question, because I had not heard about it until about a week and a half ago. So let me just talk about it for a minute. So what is good dollar? Good dollar is a cryptocurrency kind of like Bitcoin or Ethereum that you can use, spend, trade, do whatever you want to do with it. You can invest it, make more money off of it. It's a great new system. But what does that have to do with anything? Well, what they are planning on doing, and I'm just going to read what I wrote for y'all, for the group on the Left Spectrum Discord. If you are wanting to join, you can feel free to send me a direct message on Twitter. You can do that at Green Revo Pod. That's GreenRevopod. Feel free to send me a direct message and I can add you to the group and you can get involved in our fun little leftist community. So, want to learn about good dollar? All you need is a Safari or a Firefox browser, either on your mobile or on your desktop. Good dollar is a crypto basic income token based on the Ethereum blockchain. The way it works is that every day around 5 a.m. Central Time for me, the system resets and you're able to claim your daily basic income. It works out to you getting about, the last few days I've gotten like 27 and 26, I believe, and then 54 was the day before that. So it's fun. On average, the actual how does it work? What is the value? You just log into the attached wallet and you can send and receive payments. It's really cool. On average, the actual real value via exchanges, which the only one that it is currently active on is Fuse. It's only been out for about 4 months, like since middle September, so it's still new. It's still going through open beta on the app. On the website. The app is not released yet, and we can expect to see more news coming out about these guys quite soon. So on average, the actual real value on Fuse is somewhere between like 6,000 good dollars equal $1. In reality, but in reality, on the two marketplaces that have been set up, there's one on Facebook and then there's one that's decentralized. They average around $1,000 good dollars per $1. At least that's kind of what is kind of the going rate. It can be a lot higher than that, but it's generally around that 1,000 per dollar. So, like what one of my listings that I posted 100 random Magic the Gathering cards for 1,000 good dollars. So, you send me 1,000 good dollars, I send you 100 random Magic cards. Yeah, it basically just covers the shipping costs, but I get to move some excess bulk out of my house. So, that's kind of where I'm at on that. There's about 17,000 people in the Facebook marketplace group right now, and on average, about 22 to 23,000 people claim every day. Which again, it's a small community, but I've made a sale already. I sold some cards. I listed something about the podcast, so maybe we can talk about that soon. And yeah, it's just a really good service. And if any of you want to connect with Good Dollar and start receiving your daily basic incomes, all you have to do is go to wallet.gooddollar.org, and you can sign up either using Facebook, your Google, or you can just use your phone number so you don't have anything else attached to it. That's what I did. I don't connect Facebook or Google if I can afford it. So yeah, it's a really simple system. You log in, you get your coins, you check the marketplace, see if there's anything you want to buy or anything you want to do to earn some more coins from other people, and it's great. And hopefully in the next period of time, not really sure how long that's going to be. I think they are planning on releasing the Android and iOS app, and so once that happens, I will be back on the show talking about it again, because I think it's a fantastic project. They're a nonprofit. They're not making any money off this. We're looking for community members to join, because the more people that join and the more people that use Good Dollar, the more value that this currency will actually have. And when you think about a way to end at least extreme poverty around the world, I can actually see something like this where 80% of the world's population have a cell phone or a smartphone. That means that approximately, somewhere close to that number, probably like 70% of people would have access to the Good Dollar wallet. And if 70%, it just has a huge exponential growth thing going on here. And, if something like this is ever utilized, whether that's Bitcoin, Ethereum kind of works different, but Bitcoin, what's the other one? Monero, or Good Dollar or something like that ever ends up being super, super popular, then all of these projects become significantly more viable. We'll be able to legitimately create value for people. And, I think it's a very powerful thought, because it's run by a group of engineers and designers and tech people that I think, at least from what I've been reading, have looked at the cryptocurrency, the decentralized finance market, and like most people have always seen it from a very almost ANCAP perspective, where you know we're gonna need this because one day we won't have governments to use money because corporations will take over everything. Like there's a little bit of that scare on the far side of it, and on the other side of it, we have wealth redistribution. We can distribute created wealth based on Ethereum, backed by gold or another currency or another even cryptocurrency if everything continues to go as well as it is. And when you have record highs for Bitcoin and Ethereum in the last 2 weeks, and word of it going exponential here in the next year or two, like that is super, super crazy. Especially considering when I first got into all this stuff back in like 2013. It's been a weird ride. And so Good Dollar is something that I plan on using. I plan on continuing to be involved in the community on Facebook and Telegram. If you happen to listen to this episode and you want to hear more and you're not very sure and I didn't make it very clear, just go on over to wallet.gooddollar.org. And let me just be clear, this is not an ad. They did not pay me to do this. They didn't pay me in good dollars. This is something that I am very motivated and I think excited to be behind. It's a project that, while still small and still insular, A, due to being so new, and B, due to it being beta, and C, due to crypto being more of a highly capitalist market, there's a opportunity and chance for real people to make a difference and to have their lives changed by stuff like this. So if you want to get involved with this, and you do get involved with this, if you see any of my stuff on Facebook or on Telegram, or you want to just send me a DM, let me know. I'll send you $1,000 good dollars for free, and you can go and get involved in this. So I'm going to do my own redistributing of the redistribution. So for everybody that signs up, all you have to do is message me on Telegram, Facebook, or on Twitter, and I will send you $1,000 good dollars as a thank you for getting involved, for starting to get involved in this community. All right, so let's look at the next topic of discussion. The next topic of discussion for today, at least, is something that I talked about, I believe, in episode 3 or 4. This is Formula E. There's a Formula E update for the week because the first race was supposed to take place this weekend in Chile. But unfortunately, due to the pandemic, it got canceled. It got postponed officially, and it's moved towards later in the season because they do want to go to Chile and they want to get that race in, and Santiago is a great track, so I really do hope that they get in there. So let's just talk about some of the big news that came out over the last week or so about the season, especially with this postponement. We do have finalized driver lineups, at least as of now. I mean, that could change. The first race will be in Saudi Arabia on the 25th and 26th. It'll be a night race this year. And, but other than those two races, Chile and Saudi Arabia, they had to postpone Chile. They don't actually have any other official schedule dates yet. So that puts us into a really weird situation. Like, is this season going to happen? Are we going to see what happened with F1, where they kind of release three races at a time and see what the schedule's like? Most of these teams are based in the UK, so they've been having to deal with the new strain of the coronavirus, the terrible vaccine rollout that, I mean, to be fair, that's kind of going on most places, is terrible vaccine rollout, at least in the U.S., Canada, and the U.K. is concerned. I don't know how Australia's doing. Any Aussies out there, let me know how Australia's doing. I can't imagine y'all are doing much better, but maybe you are. But yeah, there's just a lot of issues around the scheduling because if a country doesn't know or a city doesn't know if their country is going to be on lockdown and if they're going to be able to let people in April, then they can't really schedule something, right? Like, so hopefully vaccine distribution and utilization and just implementation is accelerated so that life in general can go on. But that, for me, honestly, I want to be done with the lack of sports, the lack of in-person entertainment, the lack of just being around other people. I've noticed over the last year of basically being isolated most of the time because of COVID and my job that, I actually kind of do miss talking to some people sometimes. And that's not really a position that I was in that I remember in a while. So I'm actually kind of excited to get vaccinated, to get all this stuff out of the way so that we can kind of hopefully go back to something that looks like normal. I don't think it's actually ever going to go back to normal, but I do think that there's a chance that we might get a resemblance of what was before COVID. But yeah, so let's just, I'll go over the driver lineup. One important thing to note about the season is that because of the pandemic, they have moved back the next gen or Gen 2 Evo or whatever they're calling it of the cars and the aero update to next year. So to save money for both the teams, the manufacturers, and just everybody involved. Racing's expensive. Carbon fiber, custom designed, front wings for $1 million cars are very expensive, and they also go through quite a few of those. So limiting the amount of research and development that goes into this season, and considering that last season was pretty close, I think we'll see a DS Techeetah leading with, a similar running order as last year. But I think there could be some surprises, especially if we don't get 4 races in Germany again. So, they're basically just moving the production of the next gen car to next season, kind of like what Formula One's doing this season. We won't have the new next gen car. That'll be next year. They are performing software restrictions this year because instead of in normal motorsport, normal gas-powered cars, even Formula One cars, a lot of that stuff is still highly technical, or computerized. But for Formula E, it's even more so because you're just running a really fast motor on a really, really high-end computer is basically what's going on. And so they're limiting software updates and changes to before a weekend and after a weekend. So you can't go there on Friday and then push out a new update on Saturday for qualifying. They're not allowing basically free testing is kind of how I see this is how it's been going. And again, I talked about the last time we talked about Formula E, but BMW and Audi have both announced that they're going to get out of Formula E at the end of this season. So that leaves Abt, who is with Audi, and Andretti with BMW to either find a new manufacturer to back them or to do what like Envision Version is doing and buying power units from another manufacturer. So they're hoping to stay on the grid, but they don't have any guarantees, and just like a lot of these things, it's very expensive to stay in it. This is why Audi and BMW have both dropped it. But we did get confirmed that McLaren has clearance to enter in 2023, which would be massive. And we also have word that Hyundai and Kia are both interested in getting involved. My question would be: would they be running that as a like conglomerate team? Would it be Hyundai Kia, or would they actually try to run two separate teams? I don't imagine that they would try to run two separate teams because they are owned by Hyundai or the Hyundai Corporation. So I don't maybe just for branding purposes, but I mean they would effectively be the same team, right? Like I don't know. And so yeah, one of the things that one of the articles I was reading was talking about is that Formula E is no longer just where old drivers go to race for 1 or 2 more years. Formula E is slowly becoming both a feeder series and a concurrent series at the same time. Similar more to Super Formula than Formula 2, where drivers that have had success in junior formulas, whether that be Formula 3, Formula 2, maybe we'll see a W Series driver come over at some point. That would be cool. Or somebody from Super Formula. So instead of those drivers going directly to F1, a lot of those drivers are now taking time to go and drive in Formula E. And this year we've got a few new names. So let's just start at the top here, and I'll tell you of any new changes if there are any. So Antonio Felix da Costa, last year's champion, and John-Eric Verne are both returning as teammates with Diaz Techeetah, who also won the Constructors' Championship last year. I would expect them to be favorites again this year, but that is not 100% guaranteed. For Nissan Edams, we have Sebastian Buemi and Oliver Rowland, again, both returning. And probably in that upper midfield tier, they can win races, and they are generally pretty consistent, but they are not necessarily the favorites to win each weekend. One of those drivers could legitimately win the championship next year, but it would be due to consistency, not straight up pace. And kind of on the opposite end of that, we have Mercedes with Stoffel Van Dorn and Nick de Vries. Again, both two drivers that are returning to the team, but they are definitely a team that is more single race pace. They're going to put out as much as they can, and if they fail, they fail. But it's kind of opposite of how Mercedes works at the F1 level. Is kind of, they're always there. They always have a chance, but you never. It's kind of like what Red Bull has been the last couple years, where one weekend they'll show up and they'll be first and second or first and third. The next weekend they'll be sixth and eighth or third and fifth, or just all over the place. Very inconsistent, but definitely a winning capable car. We have our first rookie in the series, and with Envision Virgin, we have Robin Frines and Nick Cassidy. Cassidy is the current Super Formula champion, which is Japan's top tier of open wheel racing, and he also won Super GT, or he was on the team that won Super GT. He definitely is a double title holder at the moment. I can't remember if it's team or individual driver for Super GT though. We have another rookie with BMW Andretti. We have Maximilian Gunter and Jack Dennis. Jack Dennis is the new driver. I don't know anything about him. I'm sorry. With Audi formerly Apt, we have Lucas Degrassi and Rene Rast, again, both returners. With Jaguar, we see Mitch Evans and Sam Bird come over from Envision Virgin. They should be very strong. They probably won't be... They'll be a midfield team, but they might win a race or two. We have Porsche with Andrea Lauderer and Pascal Wehrlein, who moves over from Mahindra, which is a step up for Wehrlein, but not really sure if Porsche is actually that much faster than Mahindra right now. Especially if we're keeping last year's spec. As far as prestige, yeah, Porsche is way bigger than Mahindra, but Is Porsche going to do better this year than Mahindra? I don't know. It's a toss up. And then with Mahindra, we have Alexander Lin and Alexander Sims. The Alexes are together at Mahindra, which I believe is the first time. Yeah, I think that's the first time that Mahindra. Nope, I'm wrong. Okay. No, so Mahindra with Alex Lin and Alex Sims. They'll be at the back. They'll be towards the back. Same with Venturi. We have with Eduardo Marantara and Norman Nato. Nato, I believe, is a rookie, and I believe he's coming over from North America. And then we have with Dragon, we have Sergio Sede Camara, who is a rookie coming from Formula 2, which is what I was talking about before, how it's kind of slowly turning from being that direct stepping stone to being like a 1B rather than a 2, right? And then with Neo, we have Oliver Turvey and Tom Blomqvist, both returning, and not for Neo, I believe Turvey was with Jaguar last year, and Blomqvist, I believe, was with Dragon. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Anyways, I don't expect either Dragon or Venturi or Neo to really be super competitive this year, especially with very minimal changes. So yeah, that's the preseason coverage for Formula E, and the Adria Grand Prix will start on February 25th and 26th in Saudi Arabia. They don't have times posted for that yet. And okay, so let's talk about one last topic for today, and that will be the inevitable comparison between Joe Biden and Justin Trudeau. It is January 21st, 2021. This is the first full day of Joe Biden's presidency. He signed about 15 executive orders yesterday, all of them either reversing what Trump did or just doing what he said he would during the campaign, which, good for him. The biggest one of those, at least for Canadians and probably a large percentage of Americans, is actually the cancellation or the revoking of the ability to continue building the Keystone XL pipeline. And what is something that I think we will see is Trudeau kind of trying to guilt trip Biden into, accepting maybe a revised offer in the future, instead of filing a trade suit through the new NAFTA. I think that there's a possibility that something like that happens, and I worry that this cancellation of the XL pipeline is not going to be permanent. And I think hopefully it won't get overturned. Hopefully Joe Biden sticks to his guns here, sticks to his environmental policy, which is definitely the most progressive, definitely the most green we have seen ever. It's definitely still lacking. It's not perfect, but at least on like a federal stage, like a big party North American thing. I mean, you could argue that you could argue that Bernie's was more in 2016, but he didn't actually win, right? So I think we are actually looking at the most advanced environmental policy that we've ever seen. And there will be backlash from that from people on the right. And Justin Trudeau is on the right. And I feel like I have to explain that to people who are either American or are slightly unaware of the Prime Minister's policies and his positions on things. But him and Donald Trump were in agreement on the Keystone XL pipeline. That's what you need to know about that. He was okay with extending pipelines through native reservations without consulting the tribe. He was willing to completely ignore the environmental destruction on First Nations and Indigenous lands by oil and gas, by the federal government, by provincial governments, and just goes, you know what? Actually, what we're going to do is we're going to sue your children that are suing us for, not having drinkable water. Because, we can't give them drinkable water. Like, this is a Justin Trudeau policy. And, as much as he might be very... He's the kind of person that, like, Trump conservatives, very Canadian nationalist conservatives hate the most, because his ideology, his just perspective on the world is everything that, like, pretty much everybody should hate. It's very elitist. It's very corrupt. It's very pay for play. It's very, like, he would be best friends with Nancy Pelosi, kind of thing. Like, he would not be a Bernie, or he's not left of Bernie. He's not an AOC kind of person. He is very much a middle of the road Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden type person. But his environmental policy is, it's definitely on the right. I wouldn't go as far as saying, like, eco-fascist, but there's definitely a very ugly side of how he has pushed his personal environmental policy, and how he's restricted access for certain people and certain groups of people, and how his government and his party, have caused issues in the environment all across Canada. And that's even if you leave the Indigenous First Nations part out of it. Like, even if you just look at it from a strictly neoliberal perspective, he's just failed. So I don't, like, he hasn't brought jobs to Alberta or to Saskatchewan, right? So he's not going to get those folks. He's not making all the money for the people in Toronto and Ottawa. So he's not going to get those folks. It's like, I don't know who would actually support Justin Trudeau's environmental policy right now. Like, I don't know who supports that, because you don't have, it's not like you're just really giving yourself to those conservative blue collar workers. Like, if that was the case, then okay, whatever, right? Like, you want to increase your growth with oil and gas workers in Alberta and Saskatchewan. Okay, sure, right? But that's not even what he's doing, because he's not making those people happy either. So I don't know what the policy position here goal is, and I really, really, really hope that Joe Biden puts his motherfucking foot down on Justin Trudeau, because Justin really needs to be taught a lesson that, like, generally if you agree with Trump on something, that's not a good sign. But when you agree with Trump on something that's an actual policy issue, like, and then you had CBC this morning on the radio. Like, I made a tweet about it. It was just ridiculous. Hold on, let me just read it, because I need to read this shit to the world. Let's see. I guess CBC Radio in Winnipeg is selling out to make Jason Kenney, the governor of Alberta, feel good about his mindless rant. Mr. Premier, maybe you shouldn't have wasted over $1 billion of your constituents' money on this project. And then I say, Trudeau and Kenney sitting in a tree. Fucking their constituency. Hashtag CDN Polly. Anyways, yeah, so you have Justin Trudeau allying himself with Jason Kenney to try to get Biden to reverse his plan, when those two men have not agreed on anything policy-wise, I think, ever. And so if you have those two guys coming together to show their leadership and their unity, y'all can go suck a dick. And if y'all enjoy sucking dick, that's cool. That's not what I was saying. All I'm saying is that Justin and Jason here really need to get out. Get at. And so I'm going to just end this episode with a few thoughts. Going into 2021, going into a Biden administration, going into what is increasingly looking like a 2021 Canadian federal election, maybe? And just what exactly all this means. And hey, I started school again on Monday, so back to university full-time like I have been the last year, but classes got to get attended to on Zoom and on Cisco WebEx. But anyways, all right, so yeah, a few final thoughts. 2021 has the likelihood of being a great year for the average person. It also has a slightly less than even chance. I put it at about 60-40. I put it about 60% that 2021 is going to be one of the best years I can remember. Jesus Christ. There's also, I think, about a 40% chance that 2021 will be worse than 2020. We've seen political breakdowns throughout Canada, throughout North America, throughout the United States. And we've seen insurrection. We've seen how violence is accepted. We've seen that violence can be used to move a message forward, like we saw over the summer. We see that throughout our recent history, existential threats have been continually responded to with the opposing side's version of an existential threat. Speaking to people who are conservative or even nationalists. I wouldn't say racist, because racists are kind of hard to win over, not gonna lie. But just people that love their country and they think that, Aaron O'Toole or Donald Trump is the best person for that job. Well, we need to talk to them. We just need to convince them that there are better ways to go about making Canada or making the United States better. And one of the first things that we can do is get this vaccine distributed to everybody we possibly can as fast as we fucking can. Because if we do not beat this UK strain, this Ireland strain that is on its way, I don't want to think about how many people are going to die in the United States in 2021 due to COVID. If the Biden vaccine rollout is a disaster and things continually go south, it could be a very, very bad year. But the one hope I do have, and some people will probably say that's super naive, and let's be honest, it is. But I do have some hope that at least this first few months of Biden's administration won't be a complete shit show. Now, this whole impeachment thing, that's just going to waste time. And honestly, just thinking about it, Trump splitting the Republican Party really helps the left. Like, really helps the left. The United States could legitimately see a split like what happened in Canada. Or like how instead of it being an extreme right and extreme left, it could be a like modern liberal left, which isn't really left, but it's like identity left, and a actual left party like the NDP or the Greens here in Canada as kind of the two that are really actually fighting for the approval. Where and the Conservatives end up sitting at like 30% because they're split between three different parties. Right? Like that's what the left should want. The left should not want a Republican Party to be at 48 or 49%. That's insane. Because it's not like those Trump voters are going to be voting for, the next Joe Biden, whoever they decide that's going to be. Probably somebody like Pete or Amy Klobuchar or Kamala or, we might get lucky and see like Elizabeth Warren, walked out in front of the crowd again once or twice. But that's about it. Those people aren't going to win over, like those kinds of liberals are not going to win over conservative Trump voters. I'm not talking about the QAnon crazies. I'm just talking about like your general, like your random neighbor's dad, like who has a pickup truck and works construction full time. Like, yeah, probably doesn't care that much about politics, but Trump, right? Like those kind of people. That's who I'm targeting, I think, with this kind of ideology and conversation, because I think that if we can go, hey, look, the pipeline, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen because we want to ensure that this land that you're living on, that you're enjoying living on, will be here for your children and your children's children, and that they won't have to move, or they won't have to leave Alberta or Saskatchewan or Manitoba or North Dakota if they don't want to, because of climate related issues or environmental damage from an oil spill or a gas explosion. Like, yeah, it sucks that you're going to have to find a new job. But you know what we're going to do? We're going to set you up with a system here that will hook you up with a green energy job in your community, because we are transforming every single one of you that wants to be into a highly paid installer or a highly paid nuclear engineer, or like whatever the fuck, I don't know. Like we can create jobs out of those same people. We can have jobs for everybody. It's not that hard. Just like we can have homes for everyone. You go by and you see all these brand new houses and you go, wow, wouldn't that be nice? I can't even afford my $11.50 a month that I'm paying on rent. And these people are buying $2 million houses? Really? How the fuck are they doing that? I'm not saying that they shouldn't be able to do that, but I'm saying that you shouldn't be having to kill yourself effectively to pay for your rent. I think that there are levels to this. I think that you can go as simple as, food stamps are great for people that need them, right? They're great for people that need them. But a lot of people get labeled for needing them, right? If we're giving you food stamps, then blah, 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 right? There's always a then what? Then X, we expect you to do this. Then we expect you to do that. Or we can just give people money because they're human beings and they deserve that, because we live in a very rich country. We live in a country that can afford to do so. It's really that simple. And yeah, for cities and for provinces and for states and for local governments, it's not really that possible. You can't really just make money up from midair because you don't print your own money. But as a federal policy, as a national policy to end homelessness, to end, unwanted poverty, unwanted under medication, under health cared. I don't know how you say that, but like the lack of these things should not be because you can't afford it. I think that there should be opportunities for people who are working in oil and gas or policing or just big business, big finance. There are places for these people to use their skills to help their communities. And those who do that should be rewarded. Those who do not are not rewarded as highly, obviously, but they also shouldn't be forced to die. And unfortunately, in our province, in my province of Manitoba, if you are medically disabled, and that is like a very high level to pass in Manitoba, like that's not very common. But that generally is applied to folks that have like different mental abilities but are on the more extreme side of that, or people that have lost a limb maybe, or like severe accidents that have caused, the inability to walk or to see, like basically major maiming, or major physical disability or mental disability can get you disability in Manitoba. Well, if you're on disability in Manitoba, you're not eligible for any other programs, at least through the province. And if you are on disability, you are given $907 for an entire month. Now, if you're living with caregivers that pay for your rent, that's probably plenty. But if you're trying to find a rental unit in Winnipeg where you can actually have money left over for your month to eat and not rely on food shelters and charity and us, the community, to feed you, to provide you basic food, like that's almost impossible to find a place in the city for somebody who is legitimately medically disabled on medical disability payments, and if they are able enough to live by themselves or live with a partner, like that's really hard to come up with that kind of money with $907. Like we pay, me and my wife, we paid, I want to say $925 for a 1-bedroom in a very shady area of town, and we looked at a few others that were in that like $800 to $900 range, and most of them were, let's just be honest, they were kind of shitholes. So, at least for what I'm used to, they were definitely shitholes. But even that's out of reach for these people. So we have a ton of homeless people in Manitoba who are disabled on disability, and they're not getting, and they don't qualify for rent assist or they're not given a place to live. In Manitoba, it's the minus 40 here. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, I don't understand our government's positions on these things. And yeah, I'm supposed to be talking about 2020 and 2021, but I got on this little bit of a rant, and I'm going a little bit longer than I definitely should be. But I will finish this up in the next 3 minutes, I promise. The final thing that I wanted to talk about this episode is a small issue that honestly doesn't affect that many people. Definitely not as the greater world population. But for me and my job and my coworkers, I'm trying to decide how much I want to say here. There was a meeting yesterday with an organization who organizes, and the presentation leader, I'm trying to be very cryptic. I'm sorry, this is bad. I'm sure you understand what I'm trying to say. The presentation leader brought up the fact that in Manitoba, security guards and the security guard minimum wage, which is a thing, it's actually different than the normal minimum wage. It's supposed to be $2. It's supposed to be $2.25 higher, I believe, or $2.29. I can't remember what the exact number is. Anyway, it's supposed to be about $2 more. Well, in 2017, Premier Brian Pallister he froze the wage increase for security guard officers, or for security guards and security officers. And I wasn't actually aware that our salaries were provincially mandated. And that's a problem. Because just based on the math, this individual decision by this government is costing me and all of my coworkers approximately, if they work full time, approximately $270 a month, which is a lot. Especially for some people. For us, for me and my wife, $270 would be nice to put away in savings. But for some guards that work in this province, an extra $270 a month is literally the difference between them feeding their family and not. Because if me and her were on just my income, for whatever reason, if she got pregnant or whatever, we'd be that would be bad, right? And I know that there are quite a few single moms that work as security officers because it's relatively good pay, it's not that hard, 99 times out of 100, and it's a pretty relaxed work environment for the most part, at least until COVID started. And she is now missing out on $270 a month. That is, like, it's not even coming out of the government's pocket. That's the crazy part here. It's not like the government pays us to do this work. It's being paid by a private company. So the next round of negotiations for our contracts may or may not have something to do with that. And I plan on bringing this up with the union hierarchy in more detail once I have completely thought out everything I want to say and do. So keep an ear out for that. I'm sure I will have some more news and updates regarding this slightly greater than mild inconvenience. And I hope y'all had a great day. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. I put a little bit more thought into it. It's a little bit longer than normal, and I hope you like it. Feel free to leave a 5-star review and a comment if you enjoyed it. If you would like to get in contact with me anywhere, Twitter is definitely the best place right now. You can just send me a DM at GreenRevoPod. That's GreenRevopod. You can send me a message there. You can follow me. You can get in contact with me there. I am always on Twitter. I'm always connected to my phone because of school and work and life. So, that's the best place to get in contact with me. If you're interested in Good Dollar, again, check that out, wallet.gooddollar.org, to get your free daily crypto basic income. Give me some comments, give me some feedback, guys. I really do want to know what you think about this one. And until next time, have a great day. Stay safe. Wear a mask. Solidarity with all y'all motherfuckers. I love you. Bye.